Sweet for old Brace. Yeah. As soon as I get a signal. Good. Good evening to the City Council and welcome to the City Council study session of Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Excuse me. We have two items on the agenda. The first of these is a presentation and discussion regarding potential solar projects for the Young Family Athletic Center and the line maintenance facility. Jason, would you please introduce who we have here?
Yes, we have Tony with 820. We have the city did work with 820 with some solar initiatives around the city. We have talked to them about solar initiatives. If y'all remember back in the concept phase, way back in the concept phase of the Young Family Athletic Center, was proposed to have solar energy out there. Eventually got cut on our side because we were trying to put it in our construction costs, and surprise, surprise, the cost of construction went crazy, just like every other project. But and we're going to talk about water reclamation as well, and see what the possibilities are for solar energy at both of those two places. We think these both fit very nicely because they're both newer buildings. We have a lot of roof space out at Young Family Athletic Center, and of course our utilities department always trying to stay as green as possible. So love to hear more information from that. So right now we got Tony from 820.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, City Council and Mayor Darrell. Good to see you all. We really enjoyed the project with Norman. I was just talking with Mayor earlier about how receptive it was. It's one of the biggest programs, a little less than a megawatt. If these projects come through, it'll be over a megawatt, and there's a lot of energy still. A lot of fun working with your businesses, nonprofits, and residents across the city. As Jason said today, the focus is on two projects for the city, though there's a lot more out there. And we're going to try to zero in. You have great projects. Both the line maintenance building and the Young Family Athletic Center are really good solar projects. Not every project's a good solar project. It's got to have the right roof condition, the right energy meter, and it's got to have conditions that are going to work. So one of the things I wanted to frame first is when we did the project with the city through the Norman Solar Initiative, we used Brightwell as a funding mechanism for nonprofits. So I think it's important to quickly frame what that is. And so obviously the city can buy, and I know you guys might look at the line maintenance building and say this is one we think is a better purchase. Brightwell was set up for nonprofits. We actually put together the program with two organizations. One was Norman Public Schools, and the other was Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, so that we can purchase projects for nonprofits with the aim of putting dollars back into the programs. It's worked really well. We kicked that off in 2023. How this works, and I think it's somewhat important for everyone to understand, is we design the projects like Young Family Athletic Center or a city building, and then we have someone else purchase the system. Or with Young, we're going to show you a 30-year option where someone owns the system, owns the panels. There's no capital deployed by the city, and everything's maintained and insured by a third party. But we put better rates together than OG&E than you would be paying OG&E. That's through a service agreement. So this is an option that's been structured. We've done it with a lot of public locations around the state. And there, again, Norman was the first, which you saw that picture. Regional Food Bank was the second. We've got a lot of folks that want to capitalize these projects. So when they look at how they can use their tax dollars, putting it into a city project is very safe for them. And then obviously you don't have to deploy capital in that situation. The way solar works, just a quick lesson I think is somewhat important. You're still going to be connected to OG&E on both of these projects. We're not going to offset all your energy. OG&E is actually a good utility for net metering. So it allows you to send energy back when you're producing too much and take it whenever you're not. So in this situation, the panels on either building will either be owned by the city or owned by a third party and placed on the roof. If it is owned in this situation, like I think the Parks Department is probably thinking would be the best solution, it would guarantee a certain amount of energy from these panels. They would be insured by the investor, they would be serviced, and they would guarantee power to the city. So it's kind of like choosing OG&E or choosing solar to purchase energy from. And then your bill drops accordingly, and I'll show you how that works. So Without further ado, I want to jump into the two projects. Jason, I'll start with yours. Does that sound good? If you want to interrupt me for things we've talked about, I know we'd be glad to. All right, so this is the Young Family Athletic Center. The project right here, as Jason noted, is going to cover a significant portion of the roof. We sized the system, and by the way, Grayson back here, Sykes, is the one that designed the system, has been working with Jason in the Parks Department. I believe it's a 350 kilowatt system roughly, which I'll show, and covers about 50% of the energy.
It covers about
40% of the energy. And so what we did here is we maximized as much as we could do to play within the OG&E rule set. And so the great thing about this is it's a ballast system. It's going to set on the roof. It'll maintain all warranties with the roofing company that you all work with. We work through that. It actually creates a thin layer of armor over the roof. These are actually more durable than most TPO or PVC systems. They're rated for hail that we got last night, or some of us did. They're tilted a little bit to the south, which hail normally doesn't come from that direction, but it actually creates protection for the roof. All right. Yeah, 46.55, thank you. 592 kilowatt system, 1,100 panels up there. Does offset 1.39. It offsets a lot of your carbon emissions. Those RECs do go to the city of Norman. All right, Silfab solar panels. Silfab is a domestic company. The panels are going to come off the line in either Washington State or South Carolina. All the products we use are tier 1 bankable companies that have been around for a long time. And this is a really important stat. They have 30-year performance warranties. At the end of 30 years, they're going to be performing at 85% of what the first day. That's the end of the warranty. The way I like to think about it is at the end of a car warranty, you keep driving it. So these will last into 4 and 5 decades of energy production. This is also, I think, an important image to show. These are going to be ballast systems. This is what's on Norman North. It's on Regional Food Bank. Most of these large systems are sleds set on thin membranes between your TPO to protect them, keep all the warranty in place, and are anchored down with cinder blocks that are rated for 100-year wind, straight line winds. We didn't quite get that on the way in here today, but it was pretty windy. These can go, if we need to anchor a little bit more, we put a few anchors, but there are very few penetrations, and all of those are also craftsmanship warranted. So tons of Fortune 500s and Fortune 1000s are covering the roofs with these. The technology does not create leaks, otherwise we couldn't do that. So that's just something a lot of folks typically ask. So before I go on to the way this affects you all kind of financially and show the model, questions on like the solar design, product, the way we placed on the roof, any of those, be glad to answer.
Yes, sir.
I just noticed you've got 2 bays that are missing panels. Is there what's the logic behind that?
Yeah, and Grayson and our team, we have some NAPCEP designers, H20's everyone in-house. We work with your tariff, which is your energy bill, the level you're at with OG&E. And this is the maximum we can do to generate a financial benefit. Because we did 46%, to Grayson's point. So we're mostly absorbing the energy that you're receiving from during the day. And we're trying, actually, in this situation, not to export. And that's maximizing your dollars. So if we went higher than that, we'd be sending stuff back. And it just doesn't benefit anyone except for OG&E in that situation. Yeah, great question. Other questions on the products or the way we're putting it on the roof?
So we wouldn't be doing any kind of net metering?
Yeah, in this situation, this is not net metered, or is it?
It is net metered.
This one is net metered, okay. I don't think it is.
Okay, I could be wrong.
Yeah, Randy, is it?
Yeah, I believe
Because there's
that
one
design-
meter, there's 1 meter on this, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, all right, right here, this tells me my answer. OG&E's net metering is around 360 kilowatt system, so we're at 592. So 592 means we're not gonna actually put you on net metering. So we actually are trying not to export in this situation. On the line building, we are. So we're trying to absorb all the energy and just offset that cost. So as far as OG&E is considered, they're just not gonna see it, and you're never really exporting. If we went up to 55, that means we're gonna start getting, because I think we've got interval data from you all. Yeah, I'm seeing the yes. which means we know every 15 minutes how that building's using energy. So we're trying to size it exactly where we're not exporting. Great question.
Thank you.
The other project, you are net metering.
Awesome.
So we're gonna be up towards like 89% or something.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
All right. So the way this works with a Brightwell project is we set this up first to look at a 30-year project. So today you are paying, and again, we're tapping into what we can offset. So in solar, we can't always attack every dollar. We try to get as many dollars back into our customers' pockets as we can. $230,000 is what you're currently paying on the Young Family Athletic Center for those meters. When we install solar, you're gonna save $70,000. So your bill is still going to be paying OG&E $159,000. That part is something we can't really offset based on OG&E's rules. So this $70,000 is what I'm gonna be focused on right here. These panels are gonna generate amount of power that's gonna be guaranteed to the city. That power would have cost you $70,366 if you paid OG&E for that amount of power. You're gonna get a discount in this scenario, and you're gonna pay $62,626 for that energy. So that day one, essentially it's kind of like you're deciding to buy energy for about 10% less than OG&E. So if that power is not generated, it's in the guarantee, it's in the service agreement that the city's gonna get. Insurance, the next big question. There isn't any. The insurance is all on the investor side. Maintenance, there's no maintenance. Now, I will say there's not a lot of maintenance on solar. Ground mount systems, I know you all have experienced that at your water plant. Ground mounts create a little bit more of a challenge because of mowing, things of that nature, exposure to being hit. I know that's been an issue. These are gonna be on your roofs. They're not articulating, they're sitting, they're receiving. We have a lot of rain in Oklahoma, so there's no soiling issues where they build up. But that maintenance is still not on you. The investors are guaranteed performance. They monitor it 365 days a year, and once a year, they're gonna come out and do a full site inspection of the system to ensure it's working because they're guaranteeing it to you. So in this situation, the next thing is the escalation rate. Whenever you're at OG&E it's been at historic highs, but it's around 3.8% on average over the last 20 years. We're gonna cut that back significantly on the escalation to, I believe it's like 1.2. I can't see the exact number in here. But it's going to escalate at a hedged rate. So your future energy costs are less than your current projections to be. So in this situation, you really don't even get back to paying what you're paying for energy in 2026 until past 2041. So, or past, sorry, right here, 2038. So it's your energy costs are gonna be less. The system in this situation lasts for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, there would be a divesting of the panels at 85% of production and handed over to the city. So at that point, you all still have future value that's going to be added to the Young Family Athletic Center, to the Parks Department into the future. We just stop in our modeling at where it's warranted to. So that's a 30-year model. The other option, like a 15-year mortgage, if you do a 15-year mortgage, you pay more, but you save more. So this model shows a different view. In this situation, instead of getting that 10% discount, you pay pretty much what you're paying today. You increase slower, but at the end of 15 years, the keys of the car or the solar system in this situation are turned over to the city. So you get the system a little bit earlier in this situation. So your savings is going to go up substantially in years 16 through 30. So this number jumps up. Now you then pick up the insurance now because it's your product. It's your, we estimate third-party insurance cost, which is way higher than rolling it into your property insurance. So we budgeted a high plug. So that's kind of the two scenarios. One's you get it earlier, one's you get it later. I'm gonna show you one last thing, and then I'm gonna pause for questions before I show you the water line or the line maintenance plan. The city can purchase, and I'm gonna show you that same option for the utility building. In this situation, if the city were to deploy capital, they could deploy capital, get a federal rebate check on this. and save more. But in this situation of Brightwell, you put no capital up and you just pay less on your energy over time, and you save less, but you've not deployed capital, and you're not maintaining or insuring. There's also always a right for the city to buy out after year 7. So it's going to be in there. This shows what it would look like if you were to buy out. And it actually is very similar to do a buyout versus purchase up front, which is kind of a nice thing to know whenever someone's looking at their options. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but I'll stop there and answer questions on this piece.
I did, and I think you might have answered it, but so basically in the 30-year scenario, year 31, we incur insurance costs at that point.
Yes, you would insure insurance costs.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's out of warranty.
The panels are no longer warranted to produce, but they will produce quite a bit. The panels that we're recommending have been in the field since 1986, and they're still producing at 89%. So it's significant
Okay.
product we're putting on. You're gonna want that product on there. You don't necessarily have to. You can
Right.
figure out what insurance level you want, but you're gonna want it. It's not something to get rid of.
No,
It's
absolutely.
a lot of power up there.
And then on the upfront, just purchasing capital cost, is PACE financing, is that an option?
That's a great question. Yes, you can do PACE financing for these. Cleveland County obviously is on the PACE program, and so that's something you guys could look at as well. We can actually model PACE in here too for you.
Just
So
be curious
if
to
that
see.
ever becomes something you want to look at, for sure.
I think from my perspective, it's whatever scenario nets us the most benefit long-term.
Yeah.
So,
PACE rates are going to be a little bit above the net impact of Brightwell.
okay,
So, and I think it'll be a little more of a complex transaction.
yeah,
So they're about 2 to 3 points typically right now above
okay.
the Brightwell marketplace.
Okay.
But if for some reason that seemed better,
I'm just familiar with it in concept. I don't really
Yeah.
know a lot of the details, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
absolutely.
Other questions?
I'll show the other project real quick since we just went over the concept. This one is 80.6%. This one is going to be net metering because it's an 88 kilowatt plant. This one, a little bit different. It's going to use, it's a standing seam metal roof. So we're clipping on versus setting on, still no penetrations. Still recommending the Silfab product. This project is on, this building right here. You have more obstructions that we stay away from for your permitting rules and code, but we're covering a lot of the building and we will protect a lot of the building, which is kind of nice. And so this one's about 80%. This is a 30-year view. 30-year would save $291,000, and it would start with that discount of about 10%. I know on this one particularly, project price is $213. I believe, Jason, this was one that was maybe talked about a little bit more on the cash side. It would save $556 for the city to go back to a general fund. And then the Brightwell program, again, zero capital, save 10% on your energy, save $291 over the 30-year, or a buyout if they ever decided. So that's kind of that project. It's a very clean one, very simple. Actually, both are really straightforward solar projects that are really easy to execute on. All right. I know you guys have a budget coming up too, but what other questions?
Is that one ballasted as well?
No, this one's the one that, a couple things about this one.
Just clamped.
This one's those seam clamps, and so still not penetrating. And then this one is, since it's a little smaller, we use the micro inverter technology where it's not showing up here, it will soon. Each panel has its own inverter versus string, which is kind of nice. And the other one, we use a really nice German string inverter called SMA. And now I've shown you all the products. This one's gonna run more panels on one string, but we're gonna have several of those up there. Economies of scale for the Young Family Athletic Center, that's the way to go. These are both, all these are top warranted products on the market. That's kind of the way both 820 and Brightwell have supported our projects. We've done around 800 installs with 820, a lot of commercial lately, several residential. We only do that through Solar Initiatives, so that was through you guys. Most of our work is large projects like this.
Yeah, Jason, I have a question for you. I know you said originally the YFAC was designed with solar in mind. Do you know if the roof structure was designed to absorb the weight of this?
So, before we do this, I don't know the answer to that, but before we do this, obviously, we would check with our engineering, to make sure it's safe. We don't wanna run any warranties on that building.
I agree. So, thank you.
And we do have we have to do a structural engineer stamp, go through your permitting, your electrical departments. We have an in-house structural engineer. So before anything's ever even approved, it's absolutely stamped.
Thank you.
Any other questions out of council? Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna make a just quick comment. As an oil and gas guy, I absolutely love solar. I think it's fantastic. Hopefully we can get it done.
Excellent.
So, Mayor, if I may, I just want to point out, even though we're working with 820 because they're our partners with the Solar Initiative, if we do take this down the road, we would need to take proposals or bids, depending if we're financing or doing this beforehand before we make a final decision, make sure that we stay all above board and legal and all that good stuff.
Who's gonna make the comparison on that so we got apples and apples?
Well, we would work with our attorney's office to make sure that we would have a specific, standards inside of our bid package or our proposals that we put out to make sure that everybody's hitting the same spec when we request.
Anything else?
The one thing I would note too, whenever you purchase, that's absolutely typically the way it goes. Like Norman Public Schools, they were trying to purchase solar for 7 years and struggled because of a lot of issues, bonding, timing, things of that nature. The service agreement is not deploying capital, and it's less than you're paying today. So they went from a meeting to a vote on a service agreement to doing that was in December, and then we did the project in March over spring break. So the service agreement is not deploying any capital, so it's a much quicker way. Now, we do have the TOPS bid package in the state of Oklahoma, which is a program for states, counties, schools that we've already won, so we can put that forward to make that process easier. I know buying is sometimes hard, so we've tried to make it as easy as possible. And Dr. Nick, Dirk, the folks over at Norman said that the service agreement through the EMSA, through Brightwell, unlocked the ability to do projects. So we're getting ready to do, we've done Irving, small little canopy. We've done Norman North. We're getting ready to do hopefully Whittier Middle School, maybe Eisenhower, but we're deciding on that one right now. But so we're going to start moving through, and the service agreement is the thing that allows it to move faster, because then you go, yes, we want to pay less for our energy, let's go. And you still have that buyout option if you ever want it, which is really nice. So that was just a note. But thank you all very much for the time. If there's any other questions, obviously Jason's your guy, and we'll come back
Don't
to
call
you.
me. Call
No, we love it. We love to help. We really appreciate working with Norman. It really is a
Thanks, Tom.
pleasant place to work.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 2, discussion regarding the FYE 2026 capital improvements program budget and the FYE 27 through 30 capital improvements plan.
Good times. Thank you, sir.
So good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. I'm Jacob Huckabee, Budget Analyst in the Finance Department, here with Kim Kaufman, our Budget Manager. And this evening, we'll be talking about some numbers, going over some project requests in preparation of the FYE 26 Capital Improvement Plan. So just first things to show where we're at in the process. We've already in November gone over some updates on some previously funded projects and discussed Council's priorities for the FYE 26 CIP. Today, we're going to be discussing the new project proposals and some recurring project proposals. And then on May 6th, we're going to be reviewing the final proposed plan and the preliminary CIP budget before adoption. So this is just a slide showing the guidelines that we use whenever we start the budget process. These are never set in stone, but they're always sort of our starting point whenever we look at where we're going to allocate this capital sales tax. It's changed a few times in the past few years, but whenever the actual numbers are put in, the pie chart usually looks pretty similar, a little bit different sometimes, but this is just a good starting point on where to allocate those funds. This is an overview of the requests and revenue projection for FY 26 in the capital sales tax fund. So we're projecting about $17.5 million. This is about the same of what was projected in the FY 25 budget for capital sales tax as well. So pretty close to a 0% increase from last year. With regard to the requests in the capital fund, we had over $35.5 million in capital sales tax requests. We had just over $11 million in requests from our various general obligation bond programs in the capital fund that we'll discuss here in a moment. And we had $751,000 requested in the Norman Forward Fund as well. So this is just a quick view of the 2021 street maintenance bond program. As you'll see, FY 25 is underway from last year. And then this upcoming year, FY 26, will be the final year on that street maintenance bond program. There's a 5-year, $27 million program. And we also have the 2019 transportation bond program. There's just a slide showing which projects are currently underway and shows the federal funding status for the projects in the future and where those are at. Underway, we had the Gray Street two-way conversion, the Traffic Management Center, and the Jenkins Avenue project from Imhoff to Lindsay. And then this is the Bridge Maintenance Bond Program from 2023. It's a 10-year, $50 million program, rehabbing and replacing up to 18 bridges. As you can see, quite a few of these are already underway. One's under construction with a few in design and bid preparation. And here in a moment, in a few slides, you'll see that a few more projects were requesting funds to get those underway as well. And this is the 2012 transportation program. This one is fully complete except for the last project, which is that 36th Avenue Northwest from Tecumseh to Indian Hills Road project. Everything on the city side is ready to go on this one. We're still just awaiting the status of the federal funds, waiting for those to come in so we can start that project as well. So right here we have the dedicated revenue projects. These are going to be our GO bond projects that we have, as well as Norman Forward. We have 2 projects in the transportation bond from 2019. It's the 48th Avenue Northwest Phase 2 and the 2019 bond program management project. In the street maintenance bond, we have 3 projects. We have the preventative maintenance project with $389,000, the urban concrete portion for $2.5 million, and the urban reconstruction for $902,000. In the 2023 bridge maintenance program, there was 2 requests, one for the Franklin Road Bridge replacement for $4.1 million, and the 24th Avenue Southwest Bridge rehabilitation for $1.6 million. And so that's going to cover all the bond programs in the capital fund. And then in the Norman Forward Fund, a lot of those larger projects are wrapping up, getting ready to be closed out. So we just have the neighborhood park improvements requesting $650,000, the Griffin Land Lease project for $80,000, and the 1% dedicated public art projects for $21,000.
And just a quick thought on the bridge maintenance program. I think we'll have 9 bridges done by 2030 is the way the plan's laid out. So they'll bite off 2 or 3 a year. So we don't have too many traffic messes and we don't have too many contracts underway for this kind of work. So everything the voters approved, it's all in the schedule, and we'll just be bringing them to you, prioritized based on the sense of urgency of each of those bridges in the program.
And 48th Northwest Phase 2, what chunk of dirt is that?
That would be from Rock Creek to Tecumseh.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So
these are asking for funds. So like the Norman Forward, instead of using Norman Forward funds, they're asking for capital. No, these are in their respective funds and bond funds. So these would not affect the capital sales tax.
Okay, so they're not asking for addition, like funding from the city, they're
Correct.
still
Yes.
using their own voter-approved funding sources.
Yes, that's correct.
I should point out in the Norman Forward Fund, there's about $9 million of debt service budget.
All right, so in the capital fund with the capital sales tax, these are the proposed recurring projects for FY '26. We'll start with the capital outlay. That's projected to be around $4.8 million. We have our capital sales tax street maintenance projects. Those are requesting $2.875 million. We have the network switch replacement project in IT for $210,000. The 7% dedicated to facility maintenance that was recently added into the guidelines is projected to be around $1.2 million. In stormwater, they're requesting $2.4 million. In personnel costs in the capital fund, there are $1.3 million. The ODOT audit adjustments project is requesting $100,000. There's a request for $1 million on the PAYGO portion of the bridge maintenance project. That will be funded through capital sales tax in addition to the bridge maintenance bond program. There's a driveway repair project for $10,000, street striping for $100,000, traffic calming for $50,000, the tree program for $65,000, park site amenities that replaces like benches and coverings at the parks, that's $45,000. The ADA monitoring and compliance project for $300,000, and then that 5% IT piece in the guidelines projected to be about $850,000 for critical hardware and software replacements. And in total, that's about $15,488,000 in proposed recurring projects in the capital fund. And then in addition to that, the recurring sidewalk project proposals for FY '26 are listed here with their various target locations for this year. There's the program for schools and arterials at $100,000, the accessibility project for $45,000, the 50/50 sidewalk project for $125,000, the downtown area sidewalk project for $50,000, the sidewalks and trails project for $140,000, and the horizontal saw cut program for $40,000, for a total of $500,000. And so in total for the capital sales tax, all of the proposed recurring projects are just around $16 million for all of those.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I know this day's by the number.
A lot of numbers. On the previous slide, the street maintenance, 2.8 million, that's in addition to the street maintenance bond
Yes.
program. That's just general throughout the city, street maintenance.
Yes, from the
Okay.
capital.
And then the network switch replacement, that's a reoccurring cost?
It has been for the past few years. I'm not sure how far back it goes, but yeah, it's requested every year.
Okay. Is it replacing something that has to be replaced every year, or is it? What is
We've got Tim Powers right
Yeah.
here, he'll have much better
So
insight.
what that is all of our switches, so every building we have basically has a set of switches in it. And so that amount is, we went back through, even traffic cabinets have switches in it so that the traffic folks can get back to their software and monitor the lights and things. So we went through a full count, did a full inventory of everything. And so when we applied for this, I believe it's 2 years ago, we had 90 or so switches to replace. And these dollars are replacing each of those. When that finishes, I believe this is the last year for it, Jacob, I'm not sure.
I think so.
I believe it is. We'll ingest that with our rolling IT hardware and software replacement money.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, can you explain what the ODOT audit adjustment is?
Yeah, I can explain that one. So basically, when we do the ODOT projects, we wind up getting audited at some point. There's always some money in there. We kind of keep that money there, so if we get something, we can have that money to pay and not have to come back to council and request it. The ODOT has changed slightly the way they're doing their projects, and now that we actually get change orders intermittently throughout a project, so if we have a project that's particularly tight, this is an option. We can utilize this funding to help cover those unexpected changes in a project that occur on every single project. So it's just a way for us to kind of be ahead in accounting for the unknowns that can happen in any of those ODOT projects.
Perfect, thank you.
So this is a slide briefly going over the balances in the various categories in the UMP TIF fund. These are as of the end of January, and I believe minus the recent payment of around $2 million from the Lifestyle Center. So in the traffic and roadway portion, we have $3.8 million. In the town center portion, there's $325,000. In economic development, there's just over $1.1 million. And also in the recreation facility, I don't believe there's anything in there now, but there should be some discussion coming up about transferring some funds into that category for the YFAC pool rental with Norman Public Schools.
Yes, sir.
The 3.8 million for traffic and roadway, is that the money that could be used for improvements to 24th and Tecumseh and flood in Tecumseh?
It's more.
But it's not
flooding
enough to do it, but is for that?
That is also awaiting federal matching funds, but it's more flooding to Tecumseh flood to the entrance to University of North Park, additional turn lanes and that sort of thing.
But that was how much of a project you're thinking?
It depends on how extensive we make that project and how much you try to bring into that. I think the last time we ran it, it looked like it was probably going to be between in the $12 million range. I would expect that may have gone up in that time frame. But again, this was intended to be matching funds for a federal program.
Thanks.
I would note under the town center, lifestyle center incentive money, you notice that $325,000 is down from about $5.3 million. The remaining money has been paid out to the developer. So we have completed our obligations there. And when Jacob is saying we'll probably need to transfer some money to the recreational facility project, that's probably where we would recommend that it come from.
Anthony, would you explain that recreation facility project to me? I'm just not catching the gear.
When the 2019 TIF project plan amendments were completed, one of the agreements that was in there was about $2.3 million to purchase the land for the YFAC that was paid for out of TIF money, about $2.7 million for supplemental funding for the construction of the YFAC facility. And then there was about $350,000 thereabouts that was to be paid to the Norman Public Schools for their projected loss from stopping the TIF apportionment early. And so basically what's happening there is that we are paying on behalf of Norman Public Schools the rental of the pool facility to the public schools for, I believe, a 7-year period.
Oh. Thank you.
All right, so back on the capital fund, just taking into account all of the recurring projects as well as the sidewalk projects. When we plug those into our projections, we are estimating for PAYGO projects having an available balance of negative $9 million for FY '26. So that's something to really keep in mind as we go through and evaluate some of these project requests and possibly even the recurring project requests as well. As you can see in 27 and 28 as well, we're going to be negative too.
Yes, sir.
And so could you explain why that number goes down over the 3-year period?
Just as new revenue comes in. Yeah.
And we don't add more to the list.
Yes.
We get to.
Gotcha. That's what I was.
So getting on to the individual requests from the departments. In the Public Works Department, we have some new project requests. First is going to be a request for $100,000 for the design of the Main Street two-way conversion. Then we have 2 intersection studies for $50,000 apiece. One's at the Alameda, Crawford, and Apache intersection, and one's at the Boyd and Classen intersection. Then we have a $100,000 request for signalization at Main and Wiley. I believe that's outside the Rose Rock School. We have $320,000 for a roundabout at Porter, Franklin, and Broadway, which I believe is attached to a tribal grant as well as this one. So this will be the full cost in addition to the grant. And then the transit center replacement storefront, that's a $57,000 request to upgrade the storefront to handle the increase in traffic that has been coming in and out of that building since it's opened. Some existing projects that are requesting, we have the monument signs project. That's a study and implementation of those monument signs. This $345,000 is an increase from the $225,000 requested last year to account for some utility relocations within that project. We have $30,000 for the historical marker project. We have phase 5, which I believe is the final phase for the Rock Creek, Alameda, and East Lindsay wayfinding project for $240,000. We have the city's annual Regional Transit Authority contribution for $129,848. $350,000 for the fleet facility renovation. This would be for phase 2. I believe phase 1 has already been fully funded through council, so this will be for phase 2. And then Rock Creek Road from Grandview Avenue to 36th Avenue Northwest. This is $47,000, I believe, for sidewalks along the 2-block stretch of road.
Yes, a little longer than that. That goes down the hill. Is that?
This is
would be
actually from
7-Eleven.
36,
Yeah.
from to Grandview, so it's actually above the hill.
Yes, sir.
The Main Street two-way conversion, is that, because half of it's in the Center City area, could Center City TIF funds be used for that study, for that,
Infrastructure.
and it was a
I don't know.
recommended piece of the
I
Center
don't
City?
know what the exact boundaries are. I don't know if that's a project that was contemplated in the Johnson study. So my suspicion, and we'd have to defer to legal on this, but my suspicion would be probably not.
Okay. It was one of the main things our consultants identified when we did the Center City plan. And half of the one-way section is in the Center City area from University to the railroad tracks. So that could be one area where we could explore covering that cost anyway through the Center City TIF maybe, and that would save capital budget $100,000, so.
It would be a difference from, again, when the Center City TIF was adopted, it was contemplated that there would not be a two-way Main Street. That was, that had been changed, so.
Yeah. Well, it is part of the plan, so if we can use that, that could be one option.
And Councilmember, kind of on that thought of the East Main TIF conversation that council's had, obviously what two-way Main Street goes east of the tracks. So yeah, there may be a couple of ways we may do it in two TIF funding sources to make that happen.
I would want to add on that project, this first $100,000 is basically phase 1, kind of doing a study to find out really what it would all take, kind of do that preliminary engineering, and then there would be a future phase that would probably be closer to $400,000 or $500,000 for the remainder of the design of that project, and that matches very closely what the cost has been on Gray Street, and then future year funding for the actual construction. So we were kind of trying to phase this in, and we knew that we couldn't do all that in 1 year on one contract. So we kind of did it this way, one, so we could bring it back to council, have a very serious discussion, make sure we're going down the right trail. But also that way we're not incurring all the costs for the design in this next fiscal year.
Is it updating the implementation study from 2016 for Main and Gray Street two-way?
Well, it's more than implementing, it's actually beginning to look at it in more detail, actually get down to more design type of specification rather than just the broad overview. That was a very good report, gives us a lot of good information, but it really was not a design document in any measure. So we need to take it to that next level where we can start actually getting design quality type of data. Troy can move from the view of it to that design.
And Councilmember Holman,
So we'll be expanding on that, yes.
did we, in 2016, were we talking about reverse angle parking? Was that a thing then?
Not really.
And I
mean,
think-
It might have been,
Yeah, we're kind of leaning heavily that way in the Gray Street design, so that would be definitely a twist from what may have been discussed in 2016, how that actual construction drawings would change, because I think that may be a really exciting aspect of a two-way Main Street also.
okay, so I definitely want to see if we can use Center City TIF funds for that part. And then, is Main and Wiley signalization, that's 100,000 to do the signalization?
That's designed on
Just to
that.
design it, okay. And then you,
Full traffic signalization right now is more than $750,000 to $800,000 range.
that's a
Shop
little
Amazon.
Timo Light.
And then the roundabout at Broadway, you said that's the cost, that's not the total cost of actually building it, would be our share.
Right. That would be the 20% share, working with the absentee Shawnee tribe. We submitted a grant application on that one. And so this would be the design right away and then our share of the construction cost.
And then so I know the historical markers, the monument signs, do we have any that are up currently?
No, these are
These
the
are new.
large monument signs to be like on I-35 and Highway 9. And there's been a work group working on those for quite a while, and it's now kind of bouncing around, and some really interesting, really nice looking designs, and that's to do those, kind of that large welcome to Norman type of monument as you come into town.
And right now, we've got like a 24 by 12 green sign on an ODOT pole that says Norman, next 5 exits. And that's the only thing you get to see that says, oh my gosh, I'm in Norman. So this was part of that push to let everybody know.
Yeah,
you're
we used to
coming
have this big earthen mound on I-35.
See it, yeah, from
It was a
space.
really great monument to show you were in Norman. I wish we still had it. Then the Rock Creek Road, the Grandview thing. So a couple of years ago, the council decided not to do the roundabout at the intersection at Grandview and Rock Creek.
Correct.
And the widening from 36 to Grandview. So this is just sidewalks. Is there any?
So what's happened is we've had a specific request from a citizen that is moving into one of the new homes being built right there close to Rock Creek in Brookhaven. And they have a family member that uses mobility devices, I believe a motorized wheelchair. And they would like to be able to get to the neighborhood market or to the 7-Eleven or to the other amenities that they can connect to from there. And this was a request that was made through that, and because we can design it and build it in such a way that it would be able to remain even with the future construction. So it made sense to do it as part of this project at this time. And so that's why we're asking for that, so that we can service a very particular request and connect that neighborhood all the way back to 36, where they can get to the Legacy Trail. They can get all the way over to University of North Park, and to many of the other items that they need to get to. But this was a very specific need that we thought was reasonable.
All right, thank you.
So on to the police department requests. These are all new project requests. There are 2 on here that were also capital outlay requests as well that will go through the management team process. So you can take that into account. That's the animal affairs incinerator repair for $50,000 and the investigation center lobby improvement for $60,000. I believe that's adding protective glass in the lobby as well. We also have a $3.2 million request for the training facilities firing range burn renovation. $300,000 for training facility security upgrades. It's going to be access control, cameras, things of that nature. $230,000 for a new range tower at the training facility. $275,000 request for some at the investigation center for the parking lot asphalt repair. $150,000 for a design contract for a potential new police department building design. And then $150,000 to upgrade the New World Records system.
Please explain the New World's Eckert system.
I am not as familiar with that
The
one.
records management system.
New World's Records?
It's
not your software.
Oh, CAD software.
It's their entire software package for the
Yeah.
police department.
That's a lot of money, but the training range was hit by tornado in February of 22?
2 years ago, yes, sir.
And so it's needed renovation for a lot longer than that, chief.
Well, one of our employees built that thing, so yes, sir.
So, and the berm itself, is that just adding mass on top of that, more dirt, more sod?
The berm has been an issue for a while. It's, we have to pull the lead, we mitigated the lead, I believe. I think Chad mitigated the lead over that. So it's moving dirt to rebuild that thing so that we don't have any errant rounds flying over the top of the berm training.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have the IT department requests. Again, this is just the existing project requests for those network switch replacements that we had previously discussed. And that was the only one they submitted besides the 5% for their hardware and software. We have the fire department's request. These are all new project requests as well. The first one kind of ties into one later down the line there. It's the Fire Station 10 as well as the Fire Station 1 rebuild. The new station would be about $7.4 million. And the Station 1 rebuild is a request for $6.2 million. And those tie into the recent recommendations from the Public Safety Resource Allocation Study. They requested $280,000 for repairs to their ply movement system, which I believe is their exhaust system in their fire stations. $90,000 apiece for the cascade system replacements in stations 1 and 2, which I believe are related to their breathing apparatuses on there. Station security locks for $17,000. New gear extractors and dryers for $107,000, and repairs to the Station 8 driveway for $22,000.
Yes, sir.
So I mean, I assume there might be, and staff is already trying to pursue them, but are there any kind of outside funding or grants for things like police training facility stuff? I would think there'd be like federal grants probably out there, but who knows? And I'm sure if there are, staff's already been looking, but like grants for building new fire stations, designing a new police department, any outside type of funding that might exist for anything like that?
Not that we found, and we recognize that awful lot of fire departments and an awful lot of police agencies across the country that and they're big giant pills to swallow. I mean, billions if you look nationwide at what it would cost to replace and expand fire services in those growing population areas. They're pretty stingy. Every once in a while, we'll get a grant that'll, pay for the difference between a diesel fueled vehicle and a natural gas fueled vehicle or an electric vehicle, things like that, where we're finding money to pay for differences, but not for major infrastructure. On the PD side, that conversation about a potential relocation of headquarters to East Main Street, just west of 12th, could be a component in TIF infrastructure financing that could really help make that happen. There's a lot of cities face the challenge of, what would ultimately wind up being a, potentially a $25 million capital project that don't necessarily have a location in a TIF qualified area. So that may help you move forward pretty quickly. Station 10, we've got the generic idea as to where the matrix study verified that the station location that Chief King and his crew identified on the map down there in the Destin Landing area did seem to be most appropriate. So it'll just be a matter of when, and Mr. Francisco would probably share the same sentiment that the capital outlay to build the station is a challenge that is surmountable. the tough part is, you know, the other 15 bodies in the $2 million truck you gotta stick in the garage that are ongoing expenses. So, when we know we could actually staff it and put apparatus in it, would be when we're able to pull trigger, move forward.
Yeah, that seems like the biggest challenge, I agree, because rebuilding Station One and building a new police department doesn't require new staff for those facilities, so. So yeah, I think, that'll continue to be a challenge on that one.
Just along that same line, outside funding, is there any kind of partnership opportunity with the county, perchance?
I think so. We still are in pursuit of partners on the dispatch side. We have capacity in the ECOC, and we could dispatch in a couple of different flavors. Us expanding our dispatch pool of talent, or, you know, renting space to other agencies to have their dispatchers just housed in a brand new facility. So a couple of opportunities there. We're not quite sure what a new police headquarters looks like yet. I mean, conceptually, how has the business changed over the years, and what is happening now more frequently in the field and less frequently in in brick and mortar? And that whole conversation about substations versus everybody's in HQ or you're in the patrol car. So, I mean, 150,000 does not get you construction drawings for a $25 million police department, but it can help answer those questions as to, we know it doesn't need to have a dispatch in the basement anymore, so that'll be a savings in terms of square footage and functionality that the new building won't have to have. How big a parking lot will it need? And yeah, will there be more storefronts that serve that purpose, maybe on the ground floor of parking structures in downtown? So lots of possibilities, and it's just, that request just gets that conversation started about what it'll look like when it's time to issue a proposal for actual construction drawings.
Wouldn't there also be a possible income source from selling the properties on Gray Street to be able to allocate to that? I don't know how much that it'll help some. It's a couple of cents, but.
And honestly, yeah, the value of the existing real estate, it's probably more valuable as a vacant lot than it is with a functionally obsolete building on it. We don't think there's any commercial value in the building as it currently sits, but could absolutely kickstart the construction of. And we are fortunate, at least in the Nick building on Lindsay, it's big, it's got some square footage, and could provide some temporary housing for some of the functions in PD while other decisions are being made or while construction is underway.
And it has parking, and it has everything else, and so.
Just not many windows, that's all.
And then finally, we have the Parks and Recreation requests. These are all new project requests as well. We have a public beautification project for $150,000. We have a Kids Place playground replacement and updates around Miracle Field at Reeves Park for $1.25 million. I believe that's making the Field 5 more accessible for families with special needs. Upgrades at Little Axe for $230,000. I believe that request was for a bathroom structure at that facility. Park signage updates for $50,000. $175,000 for tennis and pickleball projects, which I believe will be targeted around Lions Park with this particular request. $350,000 for Ruby Grant maintenance building. $50,000 for downtown holiday decorations requested. New community park splash pad for $700,000. A parking lot expansion at the YFAC for $400,000. Parking expansion at the Adult Wellness Center for $300,000. The Sooner Theater Master Plan recently somewhat discussed at the Finance Committee meeting for $50,000. Upgrades to the Westwood Aquatics facility for $1.5 million, which was requested to go towards a new, I think it was like a surf edition facility. $25,000 for the Westwood Aquatics to add a shade structure I believe right after the entrance, when you walk in. Improvements to the Santa Fe Depot for $45,000. Improvements to the Westwood Golf landscaping around that facility for $50,000. Updates to the parks master plans for $50,000. With all the Norman Forward projects being completed, just getting those up to date for the possibility of a Norman Forward 2, and $50,000 for Main Street holiday wreaths.
You got downtown holiday direction things and Main Street holiday, two $50,000 things. They're separate items.
Yeah, there were separate items, separate requests.
And some of these, they might have been pre-existing from past years, and I'm trying to remember, Jacob.
I don't remember if I don't think any of these were existing. I had to go back and check maybe on the downtown, the holiday decorations may have had an old one, but I don't think, it's been a while. Those have been.
Yes, sir.
Just kind of curious, what all would be entailed in the Sooner Theater master plan request?
So we had a study session a little bit back, because basically to go through there and make ADA adjustments, also the possibility that it's an old movie theater, so we're kind of confined in space. So what would it look like if we had dressing rooms on either the shop side, or even possibly closing Jones and making an expanded structure out there? Just basically getting and this is kind of ties into all the park master plan updates. So just basically getting stuff ready for concepts. So if we do have a future Norm Forward 2 or bond initiative, so we'll have stuff ready to go to show to the public as we ask for funding.
And Councilmember, the concept of proposed parking structure on Comanche, the ability to make sure we could adequately park any activity that was gonna take place at Sooner Theater gives you a little breathing room if we encroach in existing parking or in an existing roadway, just for the capacity needs. And it was fascinating. We took a walk through Sooner Theater. They wanted to bring I believe it was an author or a performer to Sooner Theater, and the performer was wheelchair bound. And the challenge was, we can't get this world-class performer in our theater. And there wasn't a level piece of floor in that whole building. It was really amazing. So
Anything around stage is not to ADA standards. Like we said, it was built as a old movie theater.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great building, just not.
Absolutely.
It was a fantastic discussion, in my opinion, to be able to move it out on Front Street, get the level of the stage building stuff at the same level as the stage, so that you can move stage pieces in and out, have a dressing room. In the basement, I'm a short guy, and I have trouble not hitting my head down there. And so there are all kinds of things that are just not safe. And
I know
not
they've
good.
got some issues over there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the idea of renovating that. I've forgotten how many kids go through that, 3,000 or something a summer or something. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's a Norman institution, a beloved one that we need to cherish and take care of.
Oh,
So,
yes, sir.
So, based on budget projections, we may not have, 1.5 million or 1.2 million to replace kids' space and upgrade Westwood yet, but those could be Norman Forward 2
Absolutely.
proposals that we might put in. I know we've been talking about kids' space for a long time and needing to replace it, but replace it with the same type of playground and all that stuff. I've already had questions about it and tell them, no, it's the same builder, everything, try to keep the same theme and everything, but the material is getting really difficult to maintain at this point, 26 years later, so. But that those could be parts, same thing with the splash pad, is there an identified park where that would be at?
Not really.
Just an
And that
additional-
was a request of a council member, I think last year, she went to the station at Moore and saw the splash pad there and was wondering why we haven't had a splash pad upgrade, and she asked for us to put that in there. So we cost that out. What would be something similar to the station where their main park up there in Moore, and that was the cost of it. And yeah, we're fully understanding that some of these are definitely Norm Forward two things. And the add on kid space, that those old wooden any playground structure, the ideal life, if you're in a perfect world, would be 15 years. That wooding structure, we did have it reevaluated or evaluated by the playground company to put it in, and they gave it a very poor. It's all wood, a lot of it's rotten, and that is by far our biggest maintenance piece in the whole parks department, is keep that thing up and running. It severely needs to be replaced, and it's once again, everything 26 years ago is way different than it is now. It is not ADA accessible.
Thought of WIFAC parking lot expansion, the opportunity to make it better with dollars that would not be disposable in a future expansion and or a conversation we'd like to bring to CPTC in the next couple of meetings to talk about some different financial vehicles to build parking structures that may support a Norman Forward 2 expansion on courts and flex space at Young Family Athletic Center. So yeah, we want to make sure anytime we can make it easier for families to come enjoy WIFAC, great, especially as busy as it has been in year one. We just want to be really strategic about where we do that, so we don't dig it up 5 years from now and build a new building on top of it.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're not spending $400,000 on a parking lot and then building a new pool on top of that parking lot. And just, between that and the adult wellness center, almost $1 million in just adding parking. So of all these, but just think about that and all these budget requests we have and all these other things that we all want to do. Spending that much money on just adding more parking is a tough one to swallow, even if it's necessary for those very popular facilities. But any creative ways we can find to address that without just adding more surface parking is. And I would assume a parking garage at the WIFAC wouldn't have to be like 5 stories and, made of marble or anything. I mean,
And the thought of working jointly with the hotel, we inundate their parking regularly, and we recognize they are now charging for parking via QR code. And boy, I've seen that parking lot full. So we could definitely see some mutual benefits by going vertical on the existing parking lot out there. Make sure they don't lose a single space, they gain some spaces, and the public gains spaces as well. But people are becoming used to paying for parking at Embassy Suites right now.
Okay, that's interesting. Good note.
All right, so then that's all the requests that we had. Now we just have a brief overview of some of the upcoming challenges and impacts to keep in mind. We have the capital fund status, as we discussed, just something to keep in mind when you're evaluating all the project requests and the recurring projects as well. The Rock Creek Entertainment District and the OTA's Access Turnpike Project, the Central Library's mold remediation and repairs. As we discussed, some of the fire and police requests, the public safety study, resource allocation and the recommendations from that. The area and infrastructure master plan updates, the Center City TIF, we discussed possibly how it could affect some of these projects as well. The Griffin Hospital campus with the potential sale of that property. The failing in stormwater infrastructure, just finding ways to keep that infrastructure up to date and repaired. The police department building B improvements ties into the public safety portion and how that building is utilized. The fleet fueling facility and the fleet vehicle replacement. It's always just challenging to keep up with the fleet vehicle replacements each year. And that is it on those.
You got one question here, Jacob. Yes, sir.
On the master plan update, I know that we had also talked about doing a zoning ordinance update as a tandem to that piece. I believe staff was pursuing a grant on that. Do we know the status of that by chance?
We got the grant.
Okay, awesome.
And Jane, if you can kind of describe the timeline to take action with that grant on zoning and subreg updates.
So our hope is that we would start after we get AIM updated and adopted, looking at getting the RFP out probably in July. But
$1 million grant,
hopefully.
$200,000 match on our part, about $1.2 million budget to make it happen.
Nice job. Great.
That's how she rolls.
Yeah.
All right, so the next steps in this process are just gonna be on May 6th. We're gonna review what's in the preliminary budget before adoption and go over all those projects and any possible amendments to that budget. That's all that I have today. A lot of information, so if you have any questions.
I met with Anthony Francisco on Monday and talked about the appropriateness of $100,000 for a study of the chapel so that we can plan for either Norman Forward or what it might cost with TIF funds to actually realize that vision of it being a cultural center.
And just a quick question, and it's outside Scott's wheelhouse in terms of structural. Do we think for $100,000, a structural engineer could truly assess the building and say, here's the steps that would be required to ensure it was there for another 100 years?
That may be possible to get a study like that done, just to be looked at, definitely not
Construction
design
drawings,
plans, but they
yes.
may be able to go and do a study for that. I'd have to just,
And I would say in discussion, there was a question, is it $1 million? Is it 10 million to fix? So
Yeah, that was more the discussion is, can the building be refurbished? And if so, at what cost? You know, I've never been in there, so, you know, and I'm not an engineer, so the question that we had discussed with Councilman Grant was setting a budget for refurbishment if it can be refurbished. And $100,000 was a plug figure that we came up with, but just to answer those questions, is it $1 million to, if it can be refurbished, or is it $10 million if it can be refurbished? So,
and then
We could, with an appropriation marker, if council says, yep, that's a thing we need to know, a question we need to be able to answer as the efforts continue to transition ownership on all that Griffin land. Obviously, we would bring you back a contract for that analysis, and if we can get you that contract before budget adoption, at least we'll have the real number we can plug in the budget for you before adoption.
Any other questions? Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Kim was real quiet.
He had it taken care of.
So well mannered.
Anything else from council?
So no requests from us.
No
There's
requests?
no money for us to request.